Welcome to the Modern Agency Real Estate Podcast. This is where we're going to come up with not just some predictions, because we don't like to predict the market entirely, but talk about the past and what's going on in the present with the current real estate market here in St. Louis and surrounding counties. So me and Benjamin are going to be hosting this podcast together. Benjamin is a master in finance, and then he's also a mortgage lender here in St. Louis. I'm a founder of a real estate team, and ultimately, we're going to go through the ins and outs of what real estate is like in St. Louis from an investment angle, from a homeownership angle, and give you guys some tips and tricks to get top dollar for your properties or to get a good deal on the purchase. So, Benjamin, what was this market like this past year, would you say, and what is happening this December?
Great question, Sam. Hey, everybody. Excited to be here. 2024 was an interesting year, right? We had generally speaking, it was a slower year in real estate than it has been. So not the easiest market overall for agents and lenders, but still opportunity for sellers to get pretty top dollar for their homes throughout most of the year. And the biggest change that I would say that we saw going into December is a little bit of softening in the market there, to where we're now seeing buyers who are able to negotiate for seller credits, properties that are potentially seeing price reductions. And so we're really entering into a market where buyers have more opportunity than they have had in the past, will negotiate for what they would consider to be a good deal or to get a property at an affordable rate. So that's what I've seen over the past year and what I've seen in December so far.
Yeah, so December and January are typically our slowest months of the year.
Right.
Every year historically, right? Not that many people want to move in a snowstorm,
right?
Or when it's freezing cold outside. And so kids are in school still, and until spring, we're not going to see too much of an uptick. Now, as far as days on market goes, we have seen, a 19% increase from 2022. And so from an interest rate perspective, they're still high, right?
Right, higher than we thought they would be at this point.
Definitely high.
Yeah.
Higher than we thought they would be. We don't see too much. If the interest rates came back down, the market would go bananas, shooting property values up again like crazy.
Right.
And that wouldn't necessarily be good for the economy either. What is your opinion on that? How do you feel like that
that's right.
affects the economy?
So there's a lot of buyers right now who are relatively interest rate sensitive that have been waiting on the sidelines for rates to come down. When rates come down, we're going to see a large influx of buyers. And when there's more demand, we know that price increases. So if you're a buyer and you're waiting for rates to be at 5.5% to buy, just realize that you might have a lower rate, but that top line purchase price is also going to be substantially higher than it would be with elevated rates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when rates do come back down, the market's obviously going to go crazy and prices are going to shoot back up again. Now, as far as our negotiating ability as buyers, agents to listings, we're able to get credits in there. Now, those credits might look like a 2-1 buy down, right? And we're actually able to see folks getting in that 5% range, but having the seller pay for their points to be purchased down on their mortgage, on their interest rate. Now, would you walk folks through a little bit of what it looks like to do a 2-1 buy down and how that might benefit a buyer?
Yeah, certainly. So buy downs are good and bad depending on a client's goals. In a market like we're in currently, where we suspect that rates will decline over the next 1 to 2 year time horizon, a temporary buy down often allows a buyer to get into a property at a 5 or 5.5, 6% interest rate when market rates are between 7 and 7.5%. The way that functions, I'll just walk through an example. Say the permanent rate on a property is 7%, but you can pay a buy down fee so that in year 1, you have a 5% interest rate. In year 2, you have a 6% interest rate. And then in year 3, so years 28 through 30 of that mortgage, the rate would be 7%. But ideally, we never actually get to making payments at that 7% rate because we refinance by the time that 2-year period has come about. And ideally, in a market like this in this winter where we're able to negotiate for credits, we can get money from the seller to pay for that 2-1 buy down so that the buyer can get in at a lower rate and never pay for that cost directly out of pocket.
something that we're seeing a lot of, as well as, the realization that rates probably aren't going to come below 5%. And if they ever do, well, that's going to be pretty cool, although it's going to mess up the market like crazy again, just like it did in 2021, 2022. So buying that rate down now to get it around 5%, maybe you don't refinance in the future, but when the properties are going to shoot up in value again is when those rates are going to come back down. Well, if those rates aren't going to get below 5%, you might actually be able to get it close to where they're going to be in the future. And at that point, the property values are going to shoot up, and we're going to be able to get you into that interest rate that you're going to have. And actually, that credit the seller is going to give you may be less than what the purchase price will be when those rates come back down. And so you're going to be in a similar interest rate scenario that you would be in the future with still a lower purchase price. Would you say, I mean, that's pretty logical analysis on all that, wouldn't you say?
Right. Yeah, certainly. So the goal really is just, I wish there was a crystal ball that we could look into to get this right 100% of the time, right? There's a couple key things you want to look at. What's the cost for that buy down, and when do you think you'll refinance, and will you recoup all of the costs of that buy down in cost savings per month before you make a decision to refinance? And that equation becomes a little bit different if it's being paid for by a seller credit, right? Because then your recoupment period, it's less of a factor because that cost is paid for by the sellers, not necessarily in the buyer's pocket.
We still look at net, though, at the end of the day.
Right. You look at net, you look at the bottom line value, and what fits your goals ultimately.
I mean, going into this 2025 market, I'm really excited. I think there's a ton of potential in the market because of more of a normalization that we've seen. I think there's better options out there for buyers in general and some stabilization in specific neighborhoods. I think, Gravois Park, folks were paying a ton of money over there in 2021, 2022, and we are seeing more of a stabilization over there right now, I would say, than what we were seeing in 23 and 2024, right? It kind of shot up like nuts and then dropped back down, and now it's climbed back up a bit. And I think that's because of a lack of inventory in those hot areas. If you say like Tower Grove South, Shaw, Tower Grove East, Dogtown, right? There's a lack of inventory in those specific locations. People are settled down, right? But people who want to be close to St. Louis City, want to be in kind of a hip, modern area, are kind of gravitating towards that Gravois Park area, which really, I mean, it butts up to Benton Park, right? It butts up to Tower Grove East and to Tower Grove South in some areas. And so there's a ton of stabilization going on over there in general, and we're seeing some property values continue to go up in that location, and they really dropped drastically in 23 and 24. So excited to see that area, continue to see some appreciation in general.
Yeah, certainly. I think for the name of the game in 2025, it's stabilization overall in the St. Louis market. And what I'm hoping that we'll see, if you're a longtime St. Louis resident, you probably know that St. Louis feels like it's divided into different pockets, right? Where you'll have big differences in property values just from block to block. And my hope for 2025 and 2026, as we see more stabilization, is that some of those pockets, would come up in value, and that we'd have more of a cohesive flow between neighborhoods across the city.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see that over time, especially as we continue to see folks from the coasts moving to St. Louis because of the affordability aspect. I think focusing on affordability throughout the United States and then focusing on affordability in St. Louis specifically is super valuable. Now, affordability in all the United States, we're looking at a median sale price around $440, right? Now, if you couple that with the median income of the United States at about $84,000 a year, then you couple the median income of St. Louis, which is about $83,000 a year, but the median sale price in St. Louis is about $240, $250. So the affordability there from a, economic standpoint in all of the United States is drastically off put from what we're seeing here in St. Louis. And so that's dragging those folks on the coast.
Right.
It's dragging the people who are, outpriced where they're at, or maybe they just want to recoup some money and put it into their savings account and get a bigger house in an awesome area and pay a quarter of the price.
Right. Yeah, I think throughout a lot of the country, the average person cannot afford the average home.
Mm-hmm.
But in St. Louis, you know, because of our affordability, because of the linkage between, you know, average area income and average, you know, median sale price, you know, people have a lot more opportunity to be a middle class family living in a 3 to 4 bedroom home, you know, 3 bathroom home in St. Louis and not feel like they're pressed like they would be maybe on the coasts. So that's going to draw more folks into the Midwest in general.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting as well to talk about, you know, median sale price at different times of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the median sale price in December of this year was $240. Okay. Here in St. Louis. Now, median sale price in June of 2024 was $270.
Mm-hmm.
And really that's due to families making moves.
Right.
Families don't move in the winter times because kids are in school.
Great point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily that the value of the houses on the market have changed, but that different types of houses choose to go on market or be purchased at different times of the year based on, you know, the type of family that purchased that home and the time of year that they can reasonably do that. It's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I mean, with my first time homebuyers and people who are open to making that move over the winter months, I actually recommend it. Me
Right.
personally, I like to buy my investment properties in the winter. Why? Because less people are out shopping. And so if I've got less competition, that means I can negotiate on a whole different level than I would do come spring when the market's a whole lot hotter. So I push a lot of my first-time home buyers to focus on buying when people aren't. It gives us a whole new angle to negotiate, an ability to drop them in price, get those credits to buy that rate down, negotiate off of inspections. If it's got an older roof, get a roof replaced, you know, take care of all of the inspection items, right? And make sure that they're moving into a house that is going to be totally buttoned up. Now, if you're going against 8 other offers,
It's not an option.
it may not
You
be
take
an
it as
option.
it is.
It may not be an option. And in the spring months is when we see those 8 other offers on the table. I mean, from a logical standpoint, it would just make sense as a first-time home buyer to get into the market in those winter months.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think the only drawback that I see to that is that there's potentially less inventory on the market. So if you're a buyer that's looking for something really specific, you know, you're not willing to make those adjustments and changes to the property yourself, then you're going to have less selection to choose from. Now, that being said, you're going to make up for that more than enough through those things that you can negotiate for and potentially even get the property at a discount.
This year in particular, we've got over 9% more inventory than we had this time last year.
Yeah.
In these winter months. And so
Now, do you think any of that's connected to days on market being higher, inventories not churning as quickly, which is driving that up? Or do you think it's really just more houses available in general?
So the inventory definitely is sticking around because of the days on market, but I would also couple it with both of those.
Okay.
Right. So I wouldn't necessarily put it on either one. I would say it's a combination of the two. And as far as the market in general goes, we have a housing shortage and we can't look past that. New construction is selling like hotcakes. I mean, when we build our new construction houses in, you know, desirable areas in St. Louis, they're selling in a week. And so that's because you have those folks from the coast who don't understand the construction of an old house necessarily.
Right.
And so they want that, you know, brand new construction. And when we look at, you know, homes for sale, right? So in December, we've got 8,203 homes for sale in our MLS. Okay. December of 2023, we had 7,560. Okay. Now looking at days on market, well, we've got 31 days on market right now, and then 26 this time last year.
Right.
And so really it's both.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. More homes to choose from this year versus last year, and greater amount of time to choose from them. Right. So that all plays into the favor of the buyers.
Definitely. And from a selling perspective, I mean, I tell my sellers, if you're selling a house that might be a family-friendly home, don't sell it in the winter.
Right.
You know, don't sell it in the winter. I would tell everybody that, right? And so that's why you'll see a majority of my listings are in those spring months. You know, most of the houses that I'm selling are going to be in those spring months because I want my sellers to get top dollar. Unless you have to move and you have a family home in the winter, don't move. You know, wait till the spring. Now, at the same time, when you couple that with the purchase, right? You have to even it out.
Yeah, because they're not moving into an apartment; they're moving into another home.
They're moving into another home.
So maybe they take one loss, but they gain another benefit. So I see what you're saying.
Exactly. Now, I like to think about it from this angle as well, right? How much money is the house you're selling, and how much money is the house you're buying?
Yeah, if you're upsizing, the net benefit is greater.
The net
You pay
benefit.
attention to the buy side.
Exactly. The net benefit is greater. If I'm purchasing a more expensive home and selling a less expensive home, I still might want to do it in those winter
Right.
months.
You want to focus on the buy side. That's where you save your money.
Exactly. Now, I'm seeing a lot of sellers thinking their home is the Taj Mahal, and realistically, it's not. Right? So, if you're selling your house, don't overprice it because just you're in love with it, right? If you've got a good agent you're working with, they need to look at it from a buyer's lens, right? And you need to trust their price on it. Now, if your home is the Taj Mahal, well, congratulations, right? But if it's not, be realistic with your pricing, especially in these winter months. There's still buyers out there, and folks, who are listing their home and they're overpricing it. Well, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And you're going to have to do price reductions. If you don't do price reductions, you're going to get offers below asking price. And those offers below asking price, one, they're going to drop you in price, and they're going to ding you on every little inspection item that's on the table. I'd rather still drag some folks in that first weekend or two, working with our Sold in 7 program, which I'll go over here in a little bit, maybe on the next podcast. But our Sold in 7 program is a marketing strategy that we use in houses to get them sold in 7 days with multiple offers. Now, that strategy works not only in a spring market, but also in a winter market. But there's a specific marketing campaign that we implement into that, and it only works in specific locations. I want to highlight that. It only works in specific locations in St. Louis. We've got different marketing strategies for other locations. But this Sold in 7 program is really valuable in no matter what market you're working in, and it all revolves around price and intriguing that buyer. I mean, I've seen, it's kind of funny, right? But people will list a home for $1 and sell it for market price. Right?
The efficient market hypothesis, right?
Yeah. It's pretty funny. And when the market was nuts in 2021, there was a handful of listings that did that.
That's crazy.
I showed a few of them, actually.
Yeah.
We put an offer on a couple of them.
Feels like a bit of a flex if you're the listing agent and you have a seller who's willing to put their trust in you enough to list their house for $1. That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And the thing is, they don't have to sell it. If they get offers they don't like,
Yeah.
they don't have to accept any of them.
Right.
They don't have to accept any of them. And so
Right.
if you overprice your house, well, maybe you're just getting carried away and a little too excited. I would rather soak in as much attraction as I could off of a little bit lower list price, drive in multiple offers, and drive that price up. But from a, market expectation, where do we see things heading in spring?
Oh,
What do
you're
you
asking me to shoot myself in the foot by making impossible predictions.
I'm not asking you to predict interest rates here. Everybody wants a prediction on interest rates. I think we talk too much about interest rates in general.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay, so inventory is going to maintain somewhat higher levels than we saw previously. Days on market are going to maintain a bit higher level than we saw previously in 2024. I think that one thing that's going to be different from 2025, and I hate to say it, but I think appreciation is going to be slower between 2025 to 2027. I don't think we're going to see those rapid increases in home values like we saw over the past, 2021, 2022. So I think we're probably going to see pretty average 3 to 4% appreciation on home values. And I think rates will maintain between 7 and 6.5% until at least the summertime.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sitting over here with my fingers crossed anymore for interest rates to go down.
Right.
Whatever happens, happens.
Yep.
You don't buy because of interest rates.
Exactly.
Ultimately, if the interest rates are lower, you're going to have more competition. You're going to pay more for the same house. But I like to look back at history because it always repeats itself. So let's look at what homes were doing 10 years ago. So in 2015, 2016, arguably a fantastic market. All right, 2015, 2016. But in 2015, we were seeing 18,000 homes on the market in RMLS.
Wow.
This time.
Compared to 9 or 10 right now. Is that right?
Right now we're looking at 8.
8. Okay. Okay.
So over double,
Yeah.
right? Now, how about sales? I think that's an interesting one to chat about a little bit. Closed sales. So closed sales in December. All right, we had 3,300. All right, in our MLS. Now in 2015, we had 2,100. So what does that tell you?
More sales with lower inventory.
More sales, lower inventory.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2021, we had 3,300 sales.
Okay.
Okay. And we had 8,800 on the market.
Not all that different than this year.
Not all that different than this year, really. All right. And so is it a seller's market or is it a buyer's market? Or are people thinking it's a buyer's market just because people are listing their house because they think it's a Taj Mahal? And they're overpricing it.
Right.
I would argue that inventory is still going to continue to be a massive issue. I don't even think I have to argue about that because I think it's,
No, it's pretty widely accepted that there's a housing shortage.
There's a housing shortage. Now, are people overpricing their homes? And that might be causing it to have that, a little bit lower amount of closed transactions?
Mm-hmm. Well, potentially. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think you mentioned quite a bit to me is that a real estate agent's job is to set healthy expectations and to be a realist, right? A real estate agent's job is not to placate to the fact that a seller might think their home is a Taj Mahal and just list for whatever the seller wants to list for. If they want to do that, they could represent themselves, right? A good real estate agent, just like a good loan officer, needs to be willing to tell their clients uncomfortable truths when they're in the client's best interest.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the fact of the matter.
Absolutely.
When it comes to our industry.
A majority of our job is setting realistic expectations and negotiating.
Right.
And so if you've got an agent that can set realistic expectations and handle the negotiation properly, well, congratulations, you have a good agent.
Right. Exactly.
Now, there's obviously a ton of other stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis, but I mean, even I outsource a lot of that to my team. Right? My job is to price that property correctly and to negotiate it to where we're going to get the best deal possible. Negotiating is just a fun game for me. I think anybody who played sports growing up, which I mean, I did at football, baseball, basketball, that was a blast for me.
Right.
We just like to win. Right. We got the spirit of a winner, kind of this, just embedded into our body.
Right.
And so having an agent that is knowledgeable in this market, because people are overpricing properties, is so key. I mean, if they come on the market that first weekend, you automatically think it's going to be a good deal because it's the first, weekend it's been on the market. Well, you need to have somebody who's going to tell you realistically, yay or nay.
Right.
So we'll see what happens here. Starting this new year, we've got some huge goals that we're going to accomplish together over these coming 12 months. Continuing to be top 1% in the area is definitely a major goal. But increasing overall sales in a market that's seeing less of them is going to be a fun game for us to play.
Right. Bit of an uphill battle, but a challenge that we'll enjoy.